As we continue our hymn playing series dealing with fill-ins and how to add to the hymn that you're playing, we're going to be looking at the hymn, I Know Whom I Have Believed. But let's start with some basic fill-in ideas, some basic ideas with what I would do if I was playing this. Now, here's a few things. If you watched last week's video and last week's tips on filling in, we're going to use basic principles. So the same principles I used in that video, I'm going to apply to this video. So you're going to hear me use the same terms. So if you've not watched that video, I'd recommend going back and watching it. We're really not focusing on left hand for this one, although yes, we're doing some left hand motion, but I'm not really focusing on what my left hand necessarily is doing. Now in this hymn, I'm also going to look at some chord substitutions. Now, here's the thing, in hymn playing, if you start with basic hymn playing, as a teacher, I would tell you stick with the chords that are in the hymn book, the chords you see. But the cool thing with some of our substitutions, especially the ones that are diatonic, they can be used in several places where it doesn't affect the quality of the chord that the singers are singing. So we're going to get to that as well. So let's first start off with some basic principles of how to fill this one in. Now, if you notice in this hymn, if you have I Know Whom I Have Believed in front of you, if you notice the first time we really have an extended hold is at the end of that first phrase. So the hymn book is written like this. Okay, that's our first hold right there. So this is basically the first place that I'm going to look to possibly fill in. Now, there's going to be other things that I will do throughout that hymn, throughout that whole line, but this is the place where I'm looking to fill in. So let's kind of work our way to it. And I'm going to start this hymn. I don't want to start it too big. If you notice the last verse talks about the Lord coming back, that's going to be big chords full. So if I start it full, then I've left myself no room to grow. So remember, we're always wanting to make sure that in hymn playing, we have still musicality. So at first, I might start off a little bit more mellow. So if I was playing this, I might start it off like. Right away, it's a little bit more gentle. My left hand is doing more rolling. So for that first fill-in, I could use a scale connector to lead me up the register. I could use an arpeggio. Another option there would be your echo chords. I did that echo chord in inversions and brought it down. Remember we talked about neighboring tones, so I'm going to go to the neighboring tone above nor, and I walked down to the melody. And because it took me up, it led me coming down with chords. Let me play it again in slower motion. A little bit of this where the melody is playing beat 1 and right on beat 2 I'm going to hit that low note, so it's going to give a little bit of emphasis to it. So that's just an idea there for you as you're connecting. Now it could be something a little bit more simple, since I am taking this verse a little bit more simple. Obviously the pattern in which I did, I had to tweak it a little bit. And I jumped my pattern when I got up high. So I have to plan again how much time I have. I could go faster with it. We could use thirds with that, and we could use thirds coming down. So maybe I'm already up. We could do various patterns with it. Now, another great option is using, especially for this more melodic playing, is using an outline of a chord coming down. Now, the way I like to teach this to make this really easy for you is whatever chord I'm playing a B flat chord here for this hold. And this is in the inversion that I was in. And think of it this way. Go ahead and start to practice this by playing that chord in all its inversions, coming down. And now go back and do it again, but take out the center note. And then we're going to double. So we're taking out that center note. You can even practice it like this. It's a little heavy, but then you can practice taking out the middle note of those chord inversions. So if we put that into practice, let's go up the register to work into. Okay, so that's just some basic ideas. Now, I spend a lot of time in that one hold. Now, that could change. If I changed my style, maybe I wanted to do something like this for, let's say, the third verse. I know not how the Spirit moves, convincing men of sin, revealing it's building a little bit, but he's moving. So maybe I want to create this style. So with that style, if you notice, because I had a rhythmic pattern going on, I held that rhythmic pattern. That was my fill-in. I didn't have to do something different there. So really, depending on what pattern I'm following, what rhythmic idea I'm doing, maybe what style or what the words are saying, that's gonna really shape. Now, let's say we're on the last verse. This is kind of building, so I might come into it with a lot of big chords, so echo. Arpeggios are great. I like using them for the chorus especially. So as we're going into But I Know Whom, and right here is a beautiful place to use an arpeggio. If we put that into action. To share with you is some different chord substitutions that you really want to start using in your hymn playing, not just for preludes. Now, there's advanced chord substitutions that you have to be really careful with because we don't want to clash with the congregation. We don't want to play a chord that they're not singing or the instruments that might be playing with us. But there are some chords that share common chord tones that by changing the value of that chord ever so slightly, we create a little bit more interest. So here's the really neat thing about this. If you've watched any of the chord substitution videos, I'd highly recommend watching the first one because we talk about all the diatonic chords in every key. So in your key signature, you have your diatonic chords. Those are the chords that relate to that key signature, that are part of that key signature. 1 major chord, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor. Now, these are the 6 chords that you're going to be using. Now, here's the thing. If you're familiar with the lesson that I taught on these, I showed you that the 1 could be substituted out for the 6. I showed you that the 4 could be substituted out for the 2. So here's the interesting thing about it. Here's my 1 chord, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to leave this note, I'm going to hold on to this, and I'm going to play the minor 6. Notice how they share all the same chord tones. Now here's the interesting about this one. This right here with this added B flat is a minor 6, 7 chord. So it's the 7, Now, what that means is it doesn't change the property of the chord. So the singer could be singing, and watch right here, instead of playing that one, I still have all the chord tones. It's just going to add a little bit of color. Same thing with the 4 chord. If we substitute the minor 2 for it, now it becomes a minor 2/7 chord. So, and right here on Y, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to work my way to this one. And right there. Okay, now that's just basic. As we get to the chorus, we can go down. Okay, so those are using chord substitutions. Now let's put it all into actual playing time. Now I have a pickup measure, and when I have a pickup measure, I've mentioned this before, instead of me playing, in this pickup measure they have the 1 chord. I don't want to play the 1 on the pickup measure and then play it on the downbeat. I want to lead into that downbeat. So I'm going to play the 5, and you can play the 4 for 5 here. I like to walk into it. You do not have to do that. But I'm going to play the 5 in my bass, and I can just play the 1 in my right hand, or I can play the 4. With that in mind, I'm going to lead into that, and let's play through this hymn.